Welcome to the Monday Monologue. Well, this week we're going to talk about what this hobby is about. And I'm not going to talk about like tube gear or, well, we may a little bit, but mainly I want to talk about like what is a hobby and some arguments that I hear from people. You know, sometimes I'll see comments like, you know, just listen to some music. You know, stop talking about this, just put on a record, or just, you know, doesn't matter whether it's streaming or whatever. I'm just here to listen to music. And I think most people that are watching this channel are not just interested in listening to music. We're interested in the gear and about the search of a certain sound and maybe different sounds. And hearing different types of audio equipment is interesting. And looking and studying this and trying to understand it's interesting. And hobbies are supposed to be a form of relaxation and enjoyment. And again, if you're just listening to music and that's your whole focus, you know, just get a streamer and some really good headphones, plug it into the streamer and listen to music. Or get a little Denon solid state amp and some Yamaha monitors or something like that, or, you know, even some of these, you know, little Clips bookshelf speakers, hook them up and you're done. But that's not what I'm doing. I mean, I'm interested in everything from this little amp to seeing what a 2A3 sounds like, and playing with 300 beat tubes and tube rolling in another amp, and trying different circuit designs. And to me, it's just kind of some people say a rabbit hole. Other people are just like, it's enjoying the hobby. And I know people that have 10 different amplifiers and that they sell gear, buy gear, try different things, go to shows, like talking to people, get on online forums talking about this stuff. And that's what a hobby is, guys. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there was a time when I was wondering, like, why do I collect all these cameras? And I actually work on and deal with collecting cameras more than I do actually going out and doing photography. And, you know, sometimes I wondered, like, you know, why am I doing that? And, you know, if I get enjoyment from it, does it really matter why you're doing it? I mean, that's the whole point of a hobby. We go out and work to make money, to do something that we enjoy. And some people, you know, buy expensive houses or, you know, vacation homes, or they collect expensive or exotic cars, or they have a boat or a yacht or a sailboat or whatever they may enjoy. And nobody says anything about that. And people have car collections, might have 50 cars. Look at what Jay Leno does. And people are like, oh, that's cool. So why is this not cool to do this if that's what we enjoy? So I guess the point of this little rant is, if this is what you enjoy doing, then do it. And don't feel ashamed that you have to, like, you know, just pick something and just be done. It's a hobby. And we enjoy doing this, so let's enjoy it. So that said, what do we got on the bench today? Back to the little amp that started the channel in this whole Skunky Designs thing was this little Noob Sound 6P1. And this one's some other brand. I can't even begin to pronounce it, but it's the same little amp. And I learned from this little amp that you can have good sound for low dollars if it's set up for your environment and you're using the right power range of the amplifier. And like when I first got this little guy, and this one was no exception, I could tell there was something special about it with the little clip speakers that I had. And they weren't even RP600Ms at that point. They were, I can't even remember what they were called. They were the smaller little version, little cheaper ones that, yeah, they don't sound that great. But with this little amp and listening to the right music, there was something special. It's long as you kept the volume below a certain level. And I could tell that when I turned the volume up, yeah, it just was not good. And that's what got me digging inside this thing to try to get just that little bit more power out of it. And for me, that half a watt of clean power that I was able to get out of this and lowering the distortion was enough to make this little amp sound really good and got me hooked on tube gear. So somebody sent me this one. I'm going to do a one and done video on applying my knowledge that I have today versus what I had when I first started working on this guy. And we found a couple other little things, and I think I found what kills a lot of these amps. And so that'll be a fun little one-shot video. This 2A3 amp that somebody just sent me, and I have to look at the front of it again. I can't remember who did this. Will Vincent, and it was a George Wright copy from Laboratory West. And somebody sent me this, and they were a little baffled that it didn't sound like a tube amp. And like he said, it doesn't sound bad, but it didn't sound special or what he was expecting it to sound like. And as can happen, he got kind of lost in measuring with a scope and some handheld thing and using a sound card and was getting some weird readings. So he sent one of the monoblocks to me to check out, which I did with my Analog Discovery 2 with the Audio Analyzer Suite, and it actually measured really good. And he's running the output tubes pretty hot. These are 15 watt tubes. He's running them at 17, and they don't seem to be red play. I mean, they don't seem to be stressed, but you know, they're running pretty high. But this is some of the lowest distortion that I've seen out of a tube amp. And that may be why he was saying that it didn't sound like a tube amp, was because the distortion, the way this is built, is not highlighting the second order harmonics that these direct heated triodes are known for. And it gets back to what I've said, and I've kind of learned through working with this stuff, that tube sound is related to the harmonic distortion. And if you're going to build a tube amp in search of getting like super low, and by super low I mean like, 0.1% harmonic distortion, I'm not sure it's really worth having a tube amp and having the hassles of the heat and the energy wasted and tubes that wear out. You can get that kind of performance out of a solid state amp. And part of the really richness that comes from a tube amp, and to me the really great sound, is from a little bit of harmonic distortion, especially the even order stuff that tube amps are known for. And so while this is a super low distortion amp, somebody should be proud of being able to accomplish that. The guy that owns this is not happy with the way it sounds, because I guess in some ways it sounds too good. Or he's just saying it sounds like my solid state amps, and it's not what I expected. So we're going to dive into this. I think part of it may be just the operating point of the tube. We may play around with that some. Really haven't dug into the schematic of this stuff. I know I've talked about doing a 2A3 amp. I've got the parts here to build one, and it's something I want to do in the near future, is kind of venture off into that kind of things. I have started really ramping up my production of amplifiers and phono stages and color preamps, and especially with the phono stages and the amplifiers, I've kind of gotten on a roll. I've got a pile of output transformers now, which was kind of the hold up, and they're just out of the picture here, but I've got like 5 chassis that are all fabricated and ready to start building. I've gotten to the point where it's like I know where every part goes. I don't have to look at a schematic. It's like, yeah, this is where the 240K goes. This is where the 510K goes, and all that. So that speeded things up a lot. I know how the wiring's laid out now. I'm about to finish up that video series. Got one left to do, and I just got to edit that one up, and just the signal wiring of the RCA jacks and stuff. The BOM and the final schematic are on my website. So you're absolutely encourage you, if you're a DIYer, to go build one for yourself. And there's a lot of options out there to use as far as output transformers. Depending on where you live, it might be easier to get like some Thermionic Labs ones if you live over in Europe. You can use Ed cores. Globally, it's easy to get those ISO Tango 12S, which are actually the cheapest ISO Tango output transformers. They sound fantastic and they just bolt right in. So that's a good option, and it only adds probably about $350 to the parts list, which in my opinion it's worth doing. So I'm offering that now if people want to, when you're ordering one, if you want to pay a little extra, we can build them with the ISO Tango output transformers. I was finally able to get the non-inductive cathode resistors, which I'm going to use on the premium builds, and also going to use the gold-plated little black tube sockets and stuff. So we're going to do kind of a little upgrade model and then the basic model. And anyway, let's see what else we got going on. We got a KT88 build that I'm going to be doing soon, and I've done one of these before, so I'm not going to probably get into too much detail, but I may just kind of highlight some of the new things that I'm going to be doing on it. It's going to be based off the Blue Glow Kegger model, just like a lot of these amps that I've built have. And I'm sorry guys, I know some of you guys are like, build something else. I'm tired of seeing those. It's like, well, that's what I know. And that's what I know how to build well. And I know how to tune those. And yeah, at some point I'm going to get into doing something different. But for now, I want to focus on what I know works. And I do want to build some KT88 monoblocks as well. Because those KT120s that I was thinking was going to really be a great thing, getting tubes that'll work in that amp with that design is just too difficult, and it's not really a viable, I think, commercial product. And so I think a KT88 monoblocks that are designed along that same kind of style with a fixed bias so you can adjust it to what you want and the sound you want would be a really cool product, and it'll fit that niche above the EL34 for people that need a little more power, and it also matches really well with that color preamp. So yeah, that's kind of where we're headed with that. Like I said, I'm building one KT88 integrated amp because customer said he wants one. And so if you got something you want built, I'm willing to entertain building some one-off neat stuff for folks kind of in between these other things. And same with like a 300B, I still want to get into doing one of those. And I think I want to try one with AC heaters and get some really good like 10-turn hum pots and see if I can make that work with these medium efficiency speakers like you see, the 91, 92 decibel ones. It's probably not going to be a good fit with those 100 decibel speakers. They're just too sensitive. But I've heard that AC heaters really sound good on a 300B, and that's what they were designed to use. And so I want to give that a shot. I've also got a couple of kind of exotic projects that I want to try. I want to try some transmitter tube amplifier projects. I've got one that was designed to be used at 1,000 volts, but there's also an operating point in the tube manual or the tube data sheet to run it at 500 volts on the plate. And so I think I'm going to try that. Got all the stuff to do that amp. Also got the stuff here to do this cool Soviet, those giant, 6C through 33s or something like that. I can't remember what they are. I'll put it, yeah, it's right here. And I've got some monster output transformers, 600 ohm ones that are designed to be run with those. So that's kind of an exotic kind of build that I want to do too. And I'm probably going to use a choke loaded plate to drive those with on a 6EJ7, which will be an interesting experiment for me too. I haven't ever played with that kind of thing. So, yeah, just tell me below what you think of those projects and see if any of those sound cool to you. Also want to try doing a headphone amp, and I bought a couple of output transformers, and I actually think I may have the power transformer here for that build, and I ordered the tubes. And so I just got to kind of figure out what parts I have for that. I got some Sennheiser 600s, I think, headphones. I hadn't even taken them out of the box yet, but I want to get some decent headphones so I can play with that headphone amp, because I know some people have been asking about that, the headphones users, because to me, there's no point in having some amp with giant tubes in it that's putting out all this heat to just drive a pair of headphones. So that, I think, would be a good project. And finally, for you guys out there that are, building some of the stuff and you're not sure, like, if you've done it right and everything, buy an Analog Discovery 2. And I think they got the Analog Discovery 3 out, which a viewer told me that the audio analyzer suite works fine with the Analog Discovery 3. I'm not sure what the differences are. I think, of course, the 3 is probably a little faster, or faster chip, or something, who knows. But might be a little cleaner input and output. Might look at upgrading, get some day, replacing my 2 with a 3. But right now, this 2 works great. That Analog Discovery 2 with that audio analyzer suite is just so easy to use, and it just directly shows you what's going on. And honestly, I would have never been able to figure out some of these modifications and these changes that I've done amps if I hadn't had something like that to check it with. And compared to what like the distortion analyzers and stuff used to sell for, this is so cheap, and it really does work reliably, and it really works accurately, and it shows you what's going on. So finally, let's look at some music recommendations for the week. This is one that someone sent me that I was shocked how great this sounds. Talk Talk, The Color of Spring. Now, I remember this band, and I was never a super fan of this. And I know this is going to tick some people off, but I listened to this on the streamer, and it was just like, it was okay. On vinyl, with my phono stage, and that VM540ml cartridge I'm using, this vinyl sounds insanely good. And this is just a modern pressing off Amazon. I'll put the link below. You don't have to go out and try to find some weird, first pressing that was done 20 years ago. This is some really fun music to listen to. That's different than the normal jazz and stuff I normally recommend. But it's just really nice music. So, check this out. And this is another one that I found on Amazon. About once a week I go on Amazon, I just search Blue Note, and I look for the ones that are on sale. And I picked this one up for like 18 or 20 bucks, something like that. And it's just really, really good. Lee Morgan is just, never heard him before. And I listened to the streaming, and I knew that I could like this kind of music. I mean, some of that Blue Note jazz is a little too avant-garde, or it's just, I don't know. I mean, I know some people love some of that stuff, but to me, some of it just kind of sounds like random noise or random notes being played, and it just, there's no cohesiveness to it. It doesn't, I mean, I get that some people, different tastes for different people, but really good. It's got Grant Green, it's got Wayne Shorter, it's got Herbie Hancock, Reginald Workman, and Billy Higgins on the drums. Really good stuff. And all these Blue Note albums sound fantastic. So, here's another one to pick up. So anyway, I know this is probably going to get uploaded late. It might actually be Tuesday in some parts of the world. It might actually be Tuesday in Atlanta when this gets uploaded, but it's Monday somewhere, so we will call this the Monday Monologue. And we'll see you next week for the Monday Monologue.